yesterday, right, we had studied about visual attention, right? In week 2, I mentioned that the attention is limited resources, right? So two limitations. One limitation is we can't process many things at one time, right? And second issue is, Second issue is it takes time to pay attention into one thing to the other. Get it? There are two limitations in attention. First limitation in attention capacity is we can't process many things at one time. We can't pay attention to many things at a time. And second thing is it takes time to pay attention from one thing to another, which means the shifting attention from one thing to the other takes time. Get it? That is most important thing in two of the issues in attention. So that is your first quiz, is something about this attention. Okay? Okay? Okay, let's go to first quiz. First quiz is something about the attention, which I just mentioned you guys. The question is, which of the following research paradigm is a well-known example of research method used to assess, evaluate attention ability? Turing test, Sternberg paradigm, or introspection? Okay, so that is something to do with your attention capability. So we have two attention capability. One is it takes time to pay attention from one thing to the other. And second thing is we can't process many things at a time. Okay, let's go for it. I will taking the time now. Very good. Okay. So what is the Sternberg paradigm? Okay, in week 1 and week 2, is something wrong? Okay, so in week 1 and week 2, I mentioned that Sternberg paradigm says something about what? What is Sternberg paradigm? Can anyone tell us? What is Sternberg paradigm? Kiwa? What do you think? What is Sternberg paradigm? You haven't read the book. So what is Sternberg paradigm? Anyone knows? Oh, you never study? Oh, come on. Talk.
If there are more information to process, you need more time.
Yes, yeah, if you have more things to process, yeah, we need more time. So in here, okay, if you have more things, yesterday we had some example, isn't it? If you have to filter out some of the information other than you have to find, it takes time. So I and T and Z. Remember that? So if you want to find the T out of I and Y, it is easier than finding from the Z. Say like this one. Because I, okay, Y, Z is the noise information when you have to find this T, right? That is your target. So if you look at this one, these two information, we have some features are similar. The vertical line, isn't it? And this one also has vertical line, and Z has a horizontal line. So if the T is mixed with Y and Z, it is difficult to find because T is sharing the same picture with Y and Z. Okay? However, if you have these two information mixed with this one, the T is outstanding because of what? Because of what? T can easily find if the mixed information with I and Y. Of course, I doesn't look like this one. Okay? So what features make this T stand out?
The horizon.
Yes, the horizontal line. Horizontal lines make outstanding out of this I and Y. So that is how the Sternberg in 1950s found that if you want to make an information salient, okay, or striking out, you have to give a certain feature, such as color coding or different size. Okay, so the people can easily understand or easily recognize the information you want to give to the end user. Get it? Okay, second question. Second question is also what we had learned yesterday is something about visual search. Okay, so you're looking at your closet, your wardrobe, okay, to find the green wool sweater in a pile of black pants. Detecting the green sweater requires serial search or focused attention or pre-attentive processing. So serial search is you have to search from the top left. I mean, yeah, the order is different, but anyway, so there is a serial search or the other way around. We don't have any particular starting point, but serial search means we have keep supervisory control with our eyes. Focused attention is part of attention, a kind of attention. So if you want to find something, you need to pay attention to it. And final, pre-attentive processing is something about what? Gestalt psychologist is talking about mental structure, right? The pre-attentive process is before you pay attention to some information, suddenly it is processed by your something else. So pre-attentive means you don't need to pay attention to some information, but suddenly it come up as a certain feature, like Gestalt psychology. So before attention, like a color coding, is pretty much pre-attentive approach. So that's much faster. Okay? So that is three different things. So in this practical example, you find the answer. Oh! Hang on. I might be, C is right. She might be right. Because my intention was B. The focus that if you want to find a green sweater out of many black pants, you have to find, you have to use the focused attention. But the color is different, right? Green and black. So it might be also using the pre-attentive process. However, the condition of that is if the green sweater must be seen out of the black pants. But in this case, if the hips of pants, if the green color, the sweater cannot be seen at the spot, it is not easy to find, or it is not easy to use the pre-attentive process. Pre-attentive process is all the information is given to you, okay, and then you can easily find the information. So the condition of the C is right is the green sweater must be seen in a pile of the black pants. At least one small area of the green sweater must be seen in your eyes. Okay? So B and C, both of them are right in this case. Good. Who will say A? If you have only a couple of hanged on the wardrobe, yeah, it could be serial search, but best answer might be B or C in the case. Okay? Okay, number 3 question is also summarized review of the last week. We mentioned about another selective attention. Okay, selective attention means you have a goal to process it. Okay, so for example, while you're driving, if you want to use mobile phone, you have to intentionally give a selective attention onto your mobile phone. The problem is, if we have the selective attention, the limitation of our performance is we can't process many things at one time. That's why we may have some car accident, isn't it? While you're too much focused on the mobile phone, you ignore the information in front of your car. If someone passing by the road, you might hit them, right? So that's why the limitation of our memory, our attention is we can't divide our attention in many different ways. Okay? We can't divide our limited attention in many different information. So the third question is something to do with this one. Which of the following is an example of using divided attention? Driving a car while talking on the mobile phone, reading a sentence, then writing note on it. Alternating between listening to your professor lecture and taking note. Okay, some of the part of the answer C is missed, but A is driving, B driving and while talking, and B is a reading sentence and then writing note, and C is alternating. Okay, looking at the lecturer as well as looking at your note. And sometimes there are two answers. Okay, sometimes there's no answers. Okay, so can I start? Should I? Ready? Get it? Any questions about quiz C? Okay, let's go for it. No, that's fine. The A and C is right. The more correct answer might be A, but C also needs some divided attention. Okay, if you need to looking at the lecturer, okay, focus on lecturer to what he said. At the same time, you have to write down on your notepad or the printout. It might need a divided attention, but the point is, that's what we have to discuss today in lecture. Say we have a different code of information. Okay, we can process pretty much well between and alternating between audio and visual. We can't process much of the same coded information, but we can process different coded information. Say like, that's why you can do studying while you're listening music. Okay? But you can't do process at one time with your eyes. Okay, that's why if I focus on him, I cannot see him. But while I'm listening, okay, I can study it. Okay, it's a strange approach, but we may have a somewhat different area to cover to attention. So visual attention, auditory attention may be covered by different part of our brain, so that we can do multi-process, multitasking in some situation. That's the major topic of today's lecture. Okay, we have different code in our attention scheme. So if that is the working, that is the things, so A is 1. So normally talking on a phone is auditory information, isn't it? Okay, we don't have any much problem if you have a hands-free tool, okay? Hands-free tool, you can do same thing at one time because driving is mostly need a visual information processing, right? Driving. But you can do mobile phone because that is auditory information. We do it very well. Okay, number C is also the lecturer, like me, professors is normally talking to you about the lecture slide. So that is auditory information, but if you want to write down something, you need a visual information, isn't it? Visual processing. Whether this one is a right notepad or whether that's a right slide, so you have to take a note, isn't it? So that's why visual information and auditory information can process at the same time very effectively. However, visual information, the same visual information or same audio information, if that is different, we can't process much well. Get it? So the A and C, both of them are pretty much right. But B is not much relevant to our discussion topic about divided attention. Reading a sentence and writing on, because that is also same visual and same visual. We need the time, the segmentation. So at one time you have to reading a sentence and then using your same visual attention to write down on a notepad. So that doesn't make any divided attention much. Okay, so that is review and leading to today's lecture. Final one is, have you studied about Trisman and Gillard one? I just deleted it. Okay. Trisman and Gallard 1980 study, which we mentioned yesterday, one of the visual search paradigm, similar with Sternberg paradigm, is the things we have to bear in mind today's study. So the next question is this one. Which of the following is an example of Trisman and Gallard 1980s? Look in your textbook or my slide. So you have to know who they are, at least. Trisman and Gallard, 1980s. You can find easily of this answer. The option A is finding an icon of KakaoTalk. KakaoTalk is famous mobile instant messenger, free one. Chapter 3. Okay, so Trisman Gallard. So finding an icon KakaoTalk in a mobile phone is the option A. Option B is, okay, finding T out of many F's is harder than out of many A's. So that is very similar with quiz 1. So feature analysis. Okay, so let's go. Okay, that is an easy question, so I can reduce the time much into the 30 seconds. Yep, most of them are right. Say it is about Sternberg paradigm, is finding T out of F's is harder. Reason is the same reason with quiz 1, because they are sharing the same feature. Okay, so you have to remember Trisman and Gallard 1. Our textbook is also talking about some of the attention on object. Okay, object-based attention, our textbook, John Anderson is talking about up to that point, up to yesterday lecture, he mentioned about the reason. Okay, we pay attention to this particular reason and then move into in here. Okay, we're talking about the reason, the area. I'm looking at this area and then move to this area and then this one. That is how we have to find the visual information. Another important things in our visual perception or visual attention is object. We can focus on particular object. Okay, say I can looking at particular pencil case, I can looking on your face, looking on the pencil. Okay, so we can find the particular information. Right. So, and then example is this one. Okay. So Boherman and Gemma is trying to explain people can focus on particular object using this experiment. Okay, so the participant, the subject were asked to find whether the bump in the one side and bump in the other side has the same number or a different number. Okay, we have bump, right? 3 bumps in here, 2 bumps in here. Okay, so when they give individually one of the information, okay, and then they have to tell whether same number of bump in each side. Okay, so they measure what? Response time. Okay, how quickly they recognize this information. Okay, as you can see, this one, okay, number A, if you're looking at the number A, the same stripe has a same number of bump, right? Same stripe, okay? If you look at this one, okay, we have same number of bump into the same object. So we recognize this one is 2 stripes, right? Right? Okay, so same bump, same number of bump in the same stripe, on the same stripe. And this one, okay, it is not the same stripes, but same number of bump, right? However, that is much closer between them rather than this one. This one is far distance. Okay, in our visual search, it takes time shifting from this information to here because it takes longer than this one because that is closer, right? Get it? Difficult? You get it? Okay, make it simple. Which one is longer to find the number of bumps? This one is that length, okay? Okay. This one better, okay? That is the distance between our visual search, right? That distance, okay? Ruler. No ruler? Okay. Sorry. So that is the distance, okay? Okay? This one is longer than this one. This one is closer, okay? So when you need to find the number of bumps, whether the number of bumps are the same or different, it takes time, right? Okay, this experiment is saying, so which one could be faster to recognize the number of bumps are the same or not? Get it? You never get it? Okay. Ooh, difficult. So, okay, let me see. So we have the same number of bumps, right? Different number of bumps. Okay, that is 3, that is 2. Okay? And this one has 3 and 2. But the bumps on a different stripes. Okay, this one is different. Okay, different number of bumps, but on the same stripes. Okay? To find the different number of bumps on the same stripe, you have to look this one and then go to this one, right? In your visual eye. But it takes time if this one is longer, isn't it? The distance is longer. This one is much shorter than this one, so who's that? The Bahman believed if the people doesn't recognize object, this one should be quickly find it. Okay, response time is shorter. Get it? Get it? Get it? You get it? Okay, so just hold a moment. We have most of Koreans in here. I can speak Korean. Just for this one, okay? 쉽게 얘기하면, 봐봐. 니 너무 모르는 것 같아서. 잠깐만. 여기, 근데 내가 한국말을 쓰면 반말이 나와요. 좀 이해해주고. 잠깐만, 여기는 두 개 있잖아요. 범프가. 여기는 3개 있고. 그쵸? 여기도 3개 있고 2개 있는데, 문제는 뭐냐면, 이 디스턴스가, 이거가 2개의 범프가 다르다는 걸 이해하려면, 보려면 시간이 걸린단 말이에요. 여기서부터 여기까지 가려면. 근데 이 디스턴스가 길단 말이야. 이거보다. 그러니까 기본적으로 이게 먼저 빨리 디텍트 돼야 되는데, 실험을 해보니까 그게 안 나왔다는 얘기를 하려고 그러는 거야. 그래서 결론은 사람은 위진으로 물건을 보는 게 사물을 보는 게 아니라 오브젝트를 따라가면서 본다라는 거지. 그 얘기를 하려고 그러는 거야. Okay, we go back to English, right? What I just did is, okay, the distance is important. Okay, the distance is important in this information. However, if the longer the information we have to detect, it takes more time. But in the Steinberg's experiment, they originally expected this one should be quicker than these two, because that is longer. This one is shorter. However, the outcome is the other way around. Okay, say like this one. Oh, sorry. The reason is, say what the Bahman and Gemmell and Mocha is identified is people can people can pay attention to particular objects. Say, if we want to find the different number of bumps in here, we shift our attention from here to here. Okay? We have to pay attention to in here and then move to in here. But if that is the same object, we don't need to shift the attention from one object to the other because that is the same object. Okay? The continuity, Gestalt continuity, because that is the same object, so that we don't need to shift the attention from here to here. That is automatically processed because that is the same object. However, if you look at this one, look at the second picture, that is different object. So that need people pay attention and shift attention from here to here. Like it linked with the Gestalt example. Okay, that is what they did, but I found something much convenient approach. Example, you can understand this object perception, object recognition, and object attention. In mobile phone, iPhone, okay, we have some black stripes in here, right? And then 4 frequent menu icon on the bottom, isn't it? That is most frequent one, okay? Different color coding. This one is grayed out a little bit. The background is gray. The other one is black one. Why is Steve Jobs designed like that? Any idea? So that is relevant to our previous slide, the experiment.
Because lower 4 menu is more frequent menus.
Yeah, that is one thing. Yep.
If we color put the color gray, and people can fastly recognize.
Yep, that is second thing. And then we can also think about Gestalt psychology. So when you look at this one, so the first our attention, our perception is this one is one object. Okay, closer. Okay, principle of closer. So if that makes sense, we can apply the previous slide, this one, say because that is the same object, we don't need to pay attention to move around to find things. But actually, if you want to find one of the icon, one of the function, you have to serial search from the top to bottom. However, if you have a different color in here, it looks like one object as a pre-attentive process by the Gestalt approach. Say this one doesn't need any big shifting attention from one thing to the other. That is second interpretation. The first interpretation is about the most of all is that is one object. Okay, so that is easily frequent, recognizable thing. So that is on the bottom with the special color coding. Okay, the conclusion is from this slide, we haven't known, say we can focus on object, but from this experiment we found that if the same object we can pay attention to and we don't need to shift attention from one thing to the other. That's why we are faster than moving around the different object. Okay, so that's why if you're looking at each individual people, it takes time because we have to shift attention. But if the same object, we don't need to shift attention. Get it? Yes. Made it. Okay? For the object attention, the evidence for the object attention is also found in inhibition of return, which means when we search particular information, we are never return to the same information again. It's arguable, never. Okay, never is not the right word, but I mean we are reluctant to come back to the same information. You know that the Willy, finding Willy? Finding someone? So when you do this one to find the Willy, it takes ages, right? From top to bottom, it takes many times, right? The point about inhibition of return is if we have eye tracking of people's finding the information is we can overlap this one. That is eye tracking. So people starting from in here, but one of the user, they just keep looking in the different places. They do not return to the same place again. Not much. The reason why we do that is we evolved from chimpanzee, the apes, to in here to find the better information. We are much faster than chimpanzees to find the information, but that's what we have learned from our instinct. We can find the information much effectively if we look into the different places. Don't come back to the same information. That is our evolutionary approach. So that's why if I'm looking for sauna, so I'm starting from in here, okay, if I can't find it, I cannot come back to in here. So until I found, we keep going on. Okay, so inhibition return is another evidence we are doing object attention, so individually, and then never come back. I mean, sometimes that is why we're harder to find the information, but that's the thing which I can say, okay, this one is inhibition of return. Okay, when you find someone from the picture, okay, we're just moving around and never come back to the same information again. Right, so that is the main experiment we found, inhibition of return. Biologically, inhibition of return is also linked to your eye movement. Your eye is keep staggering, keep moving. I mean, even though I'm looking at the Yongjun, my eyes are still shaking. You never know. So that's why our focal point is slightly changing to look at the 3D images. That's why biologically our eyes keep shaking. So it's not static. So when you're looking at in this biological data, we also found that inhibition of return is same thing in our eyes. We keep looking at all different aspects of the Yongjun because we have shaking eyes. The eyes are shaking. That's why we can find many information from Yongjun to make the 3D images. If you have only static image like a picture or photos, we can make a 3D images. But our eyes keep shaking so that we can find somewhat different angles. So that's why we can see the 3D images. That's why the 3D TV, you never know, some of 3D TVs is slightly shaking to give us 3D images. See, we can find many examples. So some people have to wear the glasses. That is using the parallax of our motion parallax. But some of the TV is slightly tintling to give us 3D images. But that is technique, that is technology to give us this kind of shaking things. So that's why our industry is so booming, in particular TV, 3D TV world. Okay, that is when you have to read our textbook. That is a major part of today's topic. So central attention, that is a major thing. So that is the most important thing, probably in this cognitive psychology. Okay, the most important thing. Okay, so just wake up. Okay, wake up, and then don't forget about this part. That is a major section of your cognitive process. Okay, so we have a visual attention. Of course, we talk about the auditory attention later on, but central attention in our John Anderson say is whether we can actually process information at a time, the multiple information. We process multiple information, right? We have heaps of information to my eyes and ears at the same time, but how we can process it? How can we do it? So two completing approach. So we can't do two tasks at a time. That is one theory. And the other theory is we can do it. See? Okay, one theory is we can't do the multitasking. Second theory is we can do multitasking. See? Perfect theory, isn't it? Okay, one is nothing, we can do it. The second thing is we can do it. Say the John Anderson and Byron is experimenting very something interesting example. Okay, where is the, okay. So what Byron and Anderson did is this one. They give us 3 digits. Okay, 3, 4, 7. And then they asked to participant, okay, at the same time, you have to do plus and multiplication. Okay, there are 2 tasks. Task 1, adding. Task 2, multiplication. At the same time. Okay, so that, for example, while you're doing this one, is you give us some buttons like that. Okay, so that to click the right one. Okay, this one is like 8 or 7. So they have to click the one. And at the same time, they have verbally speak out that is 20 multiplication. The first 2 digits, okay? That is verbally. Okay? Okay, they show the number, okay, 3 digits, and then, okay, task, when they show this one, 3, 4, 7, and then suddenly the screen gone, and then 2 buttons. Okay, 8 and 7. And at the same time, they have to verbally say that is 12. Okay, at the same time. Okay, 12. Like that. Okay? So in that case, this one. So when they do the single task, individually, not the same time, they have quickly finished it. But when they ask to do the same thing at the two tasks at one time, it takes ages, or sometimes wrong. Okay? From this experiment, we found that we can't do multitasking. We can't do multitasking. Okay? Try at home, say at the same time, plus and multiplication. Only you can do when you do the time slicing. So in one very small single seconds, you can do addition, and then the other second do the multiplication. But it looks like multitasking, but actually that is serial tasking. So that to avoid these kinds of behavior, so this task is actually push the participant to do the same thing at one time. Okay? Click right answer at the same time verbally about the answer of the multiplication. Okay? Very short time period. So it takes ages, so these outcomes say we don't process two things at a time. But Schumacher find, or we can do it, because we can do perfect time sharing. Say there are two tasks. One is, can I have a textbook? I forget that. Okay, the textbook is Schumacher's experiment. One task is this one. Task one is press the left, middle, or right key according to the whether letters occurred on the left, in the middle, or right. That is visual information processing. Task two is when they hear 1, 2, 3, they have to click the particular button. Okay? So idea about this one is we can do perfect time sharing when we do visual information and auditory information at the same time. If you look at the data, we don't have much impaired performance when we have both visual and audio information. Now this implies really important things in our memory structure for next week. Okay, our memory or our visual coding or audio coding might have a different system. Okay? Visual processing, audio processing might be separated. We don't know yet clearly, but might be it works. Why? We don't know exactly why this is much easier than previous one, because we just interpreted this one is two different coded information. One is visual information, the other one is audio information. In that case, we can process it at a time. However, these two things is pretty much same code, visual information. Actually, it's not visual. I can explain next week. This one is phonological stuff, language stuff. So that must be processed in the same region of the brain. So we can't process much at a time. So if this one is lead to our end of our chapter, say the reason why Schumacher's experiment is working is, that is very important approach. Okay, so task one is about using vision system. Task two is using audio system. So it's not much overlapped, so we can process two information at a time. Get it? Schumacher's one has a different coding, but Byron and Anderson's experiment is they are using the same types of coded information. That's why we can't process much. It takes time. Okay, the longer distance in this graph. Get it? Okay. The thing is, when you have two different code, in one is visual and the other one is audio, we can do multitasking. Otherwise, we don't. Okay, that is lead to your major part in information design. Say, what is this graph? Okay, so visual information and auditory information is being processed in different parts of our brain. Okay, that is imaginary picture. It doesn't look like our brain looks like it. No, it's just a kind of structure, probably our brain, our cognitive process will looks like it. Say we have a visual coding system, audio coding system, so we can do multitasking. If this one is one thing, we can't process it. So only reasonable, desirable interpretation of Schumacher's experiment is probably we can have a separate area to process visual, process audio. That's why we can do multitasking. Okay, so when you do visual information, it is covered by the visual area of your brain. When you coded in audio, that is covered by audio processing unit in your brain. So we do multitasking. So that is the thing of our information system design. Multimedia is based on this structure. Multimedia design based on this structure. Say visual things, visual, audio thing is audio. So that is must be congruent. Likewise, that is next week's major topic. A week later, week 5 and 6, we're talking about the working memory. So working memory looks like that. So our memory, some part is process visual information, some part process language or audio information. Okay, we have separated it so that we can process both of them at a time. Otherwise, we can't explain many of symptoms we process audio and visual at the same time. That's why this one is major structure. The structure of working memory type. Working memories looks like it. So we're trying to understand this part in week 5 and 6. Major part. Get it? Okay. So we come back this topic in week 5 and 6, but you have to remember this one is very important concept in cognitive process. Separate one. Visual, audio is being separated, process it. Okay, that is go into the automaticity. So when we have but expertise can also enhance our attention. Say like I mentioned about this SLK framework. Okay, the next slide. The last Rasmussen, he said when you have a novel situation, okay, you have to use some knowledge. Or when you're skilled people, okay, for the routine task, when you get used to it, so you don't need to pay much attention. That happens in this picture. So that is novice driver. So they are eye tracking. That is experienced driver. So that is, if you're looking at the number of that is what they are looking. So visual sampling. For the experienced driver, they're simply looking at the general aspect of the driving conditions. But novice user is their main concern is just coming through this short road, right? So that's why they are not looking at the outside, only the road, focus on the road. But they are, experienced user has a big difference. They're looking at many different angles. So using these kinds of understanding, we found that experienced user, the visual sampling has a different patterns. They're looking at many other conditions in traffic. But novice user is only looking at that. Okay? Isn't it? The novice user. The beginners, entry-level drivers. The beginner driver is only driving like that, isn't it? Only looking at front. But it's the experienced one, they just are using one hand and looking at many other angles, right? So there's the things we can do in automaticity. Okay. For backing onto the Stroop effect, so you know the Stroop effect, say the color coding things. But the experiment about this one, the automaticity is the experienced one is this one. So, okay, basically color coding, color naming is much faster because that is pre-attentive process, much quicker to recognize the color rather than name. But after training, heaps of training, so color coding, naming is much faster. The color coding is the pretty much pre-attentive one, so you can't improve much. But when you have a much of practices on color naming, that is 20 days later, heaps of training. So from this line moved into in here. So color naming can be faster when you have practicing. So that is the kind of experience. The skilled level can reduce the response time. Okay, so that is kind of example of automaticity. So not that much important. So now we go to the audio information, audio attention. So audio attention is being researched by many different approaches, but what you have to remember from our textbook as two approaches. One is filter theory and the other one is later selection theory. This one. So one part of the audio attention theory is we are filtered out many of the information before we pay attention. The second theory is, no. We are taking all the information in here, and then if that is important, we're taking it. Okay? Get it? The filter theory is we just filter out not important information. That is the first theory. The second theory is that, no, we're taking everything in here, and then important information is being processed by the brain. Okay, so filter is we just filter out before we get into the brain. Okay, but second thing is everything get into the brain and then choose what we want to process. Okay, the two major theory is working. So this one is dichotomy. So audio attention has dichotic listening task. Say, so we had to use a headphone, stereo headphone, and then one information comes into your left eye, the other information comes in your right ear, but information is different thing. Like in here, it says Hokyang, it says Yongjun, likewise. And then if you pay attention to particular, when I ask you, okay, you have to focus on your right ear, okay, at the same time, I mean, the information at the same time, left ear is Hokyang, right ear is Yongjun. But when I ask you to focus on your right ear, most of us can detect the right information. So which means we can pay attention to, selectively pay attention to in particular ear. Okay, selectively. Try it. Try my website. Go to my website and use your headphone at home and then try it. So go to my website and there is an experiment top at the tab, and then go into there, you can find the dichotic task. So you can do it. We can do multitasking likewise. Left ears and right ears, when I ask to focus on one of the ear, they can do this task very well. So of course we can't avoid this cocktail party effect. Saying when a person in a crowded room, they are just focused on many of the conversation with the people, but suddenly in some situation that very important to your ears or your brain is that is picked up by your thing. So that is the cocktail party effect. Okay, that is also the auditory attention thing. So now we go back, filter theory. Okay, that is first filter theory. Broadbent is 1958. Say theory of attention that sensory information has to pass through some bottleneck, at which point only some of the information is selected for the further processing. Simply saying, filter theory is this one. Okay, the information coming to me, but I will filter out. Okay, so before come into your brain. Simply saying. It's not that detailed much. I mean, simply say, okay, that information I don't want to process. So that is filter theory. But the other one, attenuation theory or late selection theory is no. All the information in here, and then I picked up later. Okay, so slight difference, but the implication is quite the big difference later on. So we can just the filter theory. Okay, so according to Broadbent theory, we select which message to attend to based on the physical characteristic. Sometimes pitch, sometimes loudness, sometimes timbre. So using these kinds of information, we pick up the things. So we are expecting some information. Likewise, something like this one. Context also can help you pay attention to audio information. So in your left ears, this word is, you can hear. On your right ear, you can hear this one. Okay? And then when they hear both of them at the same time, they can make a link to make a sentence. Dog, scratch, fleas. Rather than 862. This one also makes sense, 862. But dog, 6-2 doesn't make any sense. So when the experiment is done, they have to recall what they heard. But most of them, they heard dog, scratch, flea, or 862. Even though they have a mixed with the left ears, right ears. Which means we are selectively taking the information using a context. In this case, context is sentence. So we have too many experiments, isn't it? So that makes it a little bit harder, but basically we only need to understand what is filter theory and what is attenuation theory. That's all you need. I'm just explaining how this theory has been developed. Okay. Make an example. Before you going further, this one. That is the last slide, and I prepared it. Interesting example. The GPS, navigation. Why the female voice? Why the most of the, have you used the navigation driving? Navigation. Why the navigation information in female voice? Any thought?
Because most of the driver is men and they pay attention to
Girl's voice. That is one theory. Okay. Another things. But what about the female driver? They need the 현빈's voice. 맞아요? 김승우. 아니야. 공주의 남자 누구지? 있는데. 박시우. 응? Okay, why the female driver cannot use the male's voice? Why female voice? Cheaper? I mean, because there's heaps of the operators, there are most of the online banking, the telephone banking, also the female voice. Why? Now you learn about cognitive psychology, so you can apply. We learn about attention things, filter theory, and then what is the broadband is talking about physical characteristic of sound is important for filtering. Apply this one. That might be your final exam question, say. So why we have a female voice in telephone banking and navigation, even in elevator. In the lift, that most of the voice is female. Simply female is attractive doesn't make any sense, because in the other way around, if there's heaps of female user, we have to make a male voice, but it isn't. Use our theory. Okay? We just learned about filter theory, and broadband talking about the physical characteristic of sound is important to filter out, which means when you have filtered out some noisy information, you can pay attention to important things. Like while you're driving, for example, you have heaps of sound, noise, right? And some people play the hi-fi, the music sound, and talking to someone else, but suddenly you have to give us some guidance, right? Road guidance. So in that case, why female voice is effective? No? Yes, high-pitched sound. The female voice is high-pitched sound. Okay? So that's why we can hear clearly, because high-pitched sound. Okay? That doesn't apply for the elderly people. Elderly people cannot hear the high-pitched sound. That's why if you want to make some navigation system for the elderly people in particular, like an expensive car, like a Mercedes-Benz, that kinds of thing, heaps of expensive things, they can have some audio selection option. They can choose male and female. If they are older enough, okay, so you can't hear the high-pitched sound, you can choose the male voice rather than female voice. See? So that is how the audio designer make use our understanding from cognitive psychology into in here. So if you know that is real example, now you understand Trisman's experiment. Okay? Filter theory. According to broadband theory, we select which message to attend to based on physical characteristic. So for example, it's not IE. Example, pitch of voice and loudness, that sort of thing. Okay, that's what we mentioned. Okay, Trisman did another experiment with the audio attention, but you don't need to worry about these kinds of detail. Only semantic dimension make work sometimes. And Trisman is changed a little bit into the late selection theory, but just ignore it. So this one, the late selection theory, Dutchess, in 1963, maybe we can have some information comes in your eyes, your brain, and then you picked up some of the information later. So that is two major different things. So filter in an early stage, filter in a later stage. Okay, any questions? So what I did is we have this week talking about attention. Okay, without attention, you can't process information to go into the working memory or long-term memory. So only what we do as a human being is when we pay attention to something, we can process the information. So next week and week later, week 5 and 6 is talking about the working memory, which is the most important part of this cognitive process. Any questions? The review of today, you have to remember 3 things. What? The first thing is we do object perception, okay, object attention. Second thing is that object perception is linked to our working memory for the, okay, so 2 different things, visual and audio information can be processed at a time very quickly and very effectively. And the third one is this one. So auditory information as filter theory or later selection theory. The 3 things you have to remember to study.